What if the strongest hero in existence found himself transported into the most brutal universe imaginable? What if a man who could defeat any opponent with a single punch suddenly appeared in a galaxy consumed by eternal war, where hope is a luxury and survival demands constant sacrifice? This is the story of what happens when overwhelming power meets unending darkness, when a hero for fun confronts the grim reality of the 41st millennium. The void between stars shimmered impossibly. Reality folded in ways that made navigators weep blood and astropaths scream into their neural implants. Something had breached the barriers of space itself, but not from the warp where demons dwelled. This intrusion came from somewhere else entirely, somewhere that shouldn't exist according to Imperial understanding. On the bridge of the cruiser Fervent Decree, Captain Aelon Thawne watched his instruments go haywire as warning runes blazed crimson across every console. His augmented eye struggled to process what the sensors were reporting. An impossible breach in real space, with no corresponding warp signature. When the viewscreen magnified the anomaly, the crew fell silent. Floating in the absolute vacuum of space was a man. Just a man. Bald, expressionless, wearing a yellow bodysuit and white cape that billowed as if caught by wind that couldn't possibly exist in the void. No helmet, no life support, nothing that should allow human survival in such conditions. Before Captain Thawne could fully process this impossibility, the figure noticed the Imperial vessel and raised one hand in casual greeting. Then, he simply vanished, reappearing moments later inside the ship's main hangar deck, surrounded by shocked armsmen whose hellguns trained on this unimpressive intruder. The man scratched his head with mild confusion. "Hey, is this Earth? Everything looks different." When questioned by Magos Delphinius, whose instruments returned impossible readings, the stranger identified himself simply, "I'm Saitama, human. Just a hero for fun." The tech priest data stacks found no reference to any hero cults in this sector. This vessel was bound for the hive world of Vaeus Magna, and proper authorities there would examine this anomaly. Saitama shrugged his acceptance with complete indifference to the implicit threat. Deep beneath the polluted skies of Vaeus Magna, a different crisis was brewing. Greenskin spores had taken root in the forgotten sublevels of Hive Tertius, growing for 3 standard years in the moisture-slick darkness. The first Ork boys had emerged 6 months prior, and now a full warboss named Grimskull Darhammer led a massive incursion that had already consumed multiple hive levels. When the Fervent Decree achieved orbit, the Ork uprising was spreading like a plague through the lower hive, and planetary defense forces were failing to contain it. Governor Lux Helbane stood in his strategium, watching tactical displays that showed the green tide advancing level by level. The Cadian reinforcements were still 3 days away, and his forces couldn't hold that long. But there was another concern demanding attention. Inquisitor Morton Hellbrant of the Ordo Xenos had reviewed reports of the anomalous individual encountered by the Fervent Decree, and he wanted this stranger brought before him immediately. When the governor protested that they faced an Ork uprising threatening the entire hive cluster, Hellbrant's response was ice cold. "Do not presume to direct my attention. The Xenos infestation is a known quantity. This stranger is not. In the calculus of threats to the Imperium, the unknown always carries greater weight." Saitama found himself confined in a holding cell designed for the most dangerous criminals, constructed of adamantium and protected by void shield generators. When Inquisitor Hellbrant arrived to interrogate him, the questions came rapid fire. How could he survive in vacuum? How did he bypass the ship's defenses? These weren't capabilities any human should possess. Saitama's explanation was absurdly simple. He did a lot of training, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run every single day. The Inquisitor's cold smile suggested he found this explanation less than satisfactory. There were 3 possibilities. A Xenos infiltrator with exceptional abilities, a warp entity manifested in physical form, or something else entirely. Before the interrogation could continue, urgent reports arrived. The Greenskins had breached the level 214 cordon and were streaming upward through all primary access routes. Casualty reports were catastrophic. The Adeptus Arbites reserves had already fallen. When Saitama learned there was a fight happening, His interest sparked immediately. Monsters threatening people? That was exactly his thing. Hero work. Hellbrand ordered him to remain contained, but Saitama simply walked forward. The adamantium wall crumpled like paper. The void shield flared and died. Before anyone could react, he was gone. In the upper reaches of Hive Tertius, Commissioner Thade stood atop a barricade as orc hordes poured through transit tubes and cargo elevators. His PDF troopers fired disciplined volleys, but for each greenskin that fell, 3 more scrambled over the corpses. Then Warboss Grimskull Darhammer pushed through the orc ranks, a massive figure in crude power armor, wielding a hammer crafted from a Lehman Russ drive housing. The Warboss's battle cry shook the very structure of the hive as he charged forward to crush the human resistance. Commissioner Thade prepared for certain death, chainsword revving defiantly. A yellow blur flashed between them. Saitama stood before the charging Warboss, hands casually at his sides, looking up at the massive greenskin with mild curiosity. "So you're the monster, causing all the trouble?" Grimskull skidded to a halt, his beady red eyes narrowing with savage glee at this new opponent. When the Warboss swung his massive hammer down with force enough to shatter Ferrocrete, Saitama caught it with his palm. The shockwave blew back troopers and orcs alike, shattering viewports and causing dust to rain from the ceiling hundreds of meters above. The orc stared in disbelief as this bald human held his hammer effortlessly, expression unchanged. When Grimskull ripped the weapon free and swung again with all his considerable strength, Saitama caught it with just his index finger. "You're pretty strong, but not that strong." The hero cocked his fist back with deliberate casualness. Normal punch. The blow connected. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Grimskull Darhammer exploded in a perfect cone of disintegration, extending 300 meters behind him, vaporizing dozens of orcs and carving a circular tunnel through 6 levels of hive structure. Silence fell. The remaining orcs broke first, fleeing in terror from this yellow-suited doom. Commissioner Thade stared in shock, his bolt pistol hanging forgotten. "Emperor, preserve us. What are you?" Saitama scratched his bald head. "I told you already. Just a hero." Word of the miracle spread through Veus Magna like wildfire. Picked captures from surveillance servitors passed from data slate to data slate. The common folk spoke in hushed tones of the bald savior sent by the emperor to deliver them, in dormitories and noble spires alike. His legend grew with each telling. Inquisitor Hellbrand reviewed the footage repeatedly, his concern growing. The subject demonstrated strength beyond even Astartes' capabilities. No known enhancement could produce such results. There was no psychic activity detected, which ruled out biomantic amplification. Whatever he was, he represented a potential threat to Imperial stability. In the days following, an uneasy peace settled over the world. The surviving orcs retreated leaderless and disorganized. The Cadians arrived to find little resistance, as though the greenskin will to fight had been shattered along with their warboss. Saitama wandered the middle hive districts, stopping petty crimes, helping citizens, eating whatever food was offered. People flocked to him, reaching out to touch his white cape as though it were a holy relic. Behind him, always watching from shadows, moved the agents of Inquisitor Hellbrand, recording his every movement and impossible feat. On the 8th day, a new threat emerged. The very air split open in a hive district, reality peeling back to reveal the seething madness of the warp. Through this wound poured entities that defied description, daemons of the ruinous powers manifested in physical form. A Greater Daemon of Khorne led the charge, a towering entity of muscle and brass armor, its canine head crowned with horns. PDF troopers opened fire, their lost guns spitting beams that dissipated harmlessly against the daemon's warp-forged hide. Saitama landed directly in the daemon's path. The massive entity halted, inhaling deeply with senses beyond the material. "What is this? I sense no fear, no anger, no hate. What manner of mortal are you?" The hero shrugged. "Just a guy who's a hero for fun." The daemon threw back its head and laughed, a sound that caused blood to leak from nearby humans' ears. "There are no heroes in this universe, little one. Only pawns in the great game." When Saitama asked it to leave, the daemon roared and swung its massive axe. The bald hero caught the blade between his thumb and forefinger. Silence fell as the daemon stared in disbelief. Its lesser kindred froze, sensing something impossible had occurred. When the daemon manifested a brass sword and thrust it at Saitama's heart, the weapon shattered upon impact. The hero sighed. This is getting repetitive. He flicked his finger against the daemon's knee, and the limb exploded. As the massive entity crashed to the ground howling, Saitama gave it one more chance to retreat. When it refused, he delivered his verdict. Serious punch. His fist moved with actual intent this time. Reality itself bent around the point of impact. The Greater Daemon didn't simply disintegrate, it unraveled. Its very essence scattered across physical space and the Imperium. The shockwave continued outward, striking the warp rift and collapsing it with a sound like dying gods. The remaining daemons dissolved into fading unreality. The crowd that emerged from hiding fell to their knees, chanting, "Saint of the One Punch." High above, Inquisitor Hellbrand watched through surveillance servitors, his hands trembling as he gripped his command console. This changes everything. A figure materialized from shadows, an Officio Assassinorum operative awaiting orders. "Not yet," Hellbrand said. "He's revealed a crucial weakness. His hero complex compels him to respond to threats. He's building connections to the local population. When the time comes, we'll know exactly how to control him." Over the following days, tales of the Bald Saint spread from Habblock to Manufactorum. Crude icons bearing his likeness appeared in worker shrines alongside images of the god emperor. Governor Hellbane summoned his council to address the growing cult of personality. The cardinal's representative declared it bordered on heresy. This man had made no claim to imperial sanction, yet was treated as a living saint. The Lord Marshal countered that he'd destroyed an Ork Warboss and banished a Greater Daemon. What else could he be but the Emperor's instrument? When the council debated what to do about Saitama, the man himself burst through the chamber doors, followed by a breathless young woman named Kalia, who'd appointed herself his guide. "Sorry to barge in, but I heard you guys were talking about me." He wanted to clear something up. He wasn't a saint or anything special. Back home, he'd been low-ranked in the Hero Association, just B-class. The assembled dignitaries struggled to process this casual dismissal of his own significance. Their discussion was interrupted by shrill alarms. Multiple vessels had translated into real-space Tyranid bioships. At least 3 hive ships, with escort organisms on an attack vector for Veus Magna. The blood drained from Governor Hellbane's face. They had no fleet assets to intercept, and orbital defenses couldn't handle a force of that magnitude. When Saitama asked what Tyranids were, Kalia's voice was hollow with fear. "The Great Devourer, a xenos hive, mind that consumes entire worlds." Saitama's expression brightened. "So they're strong?" The desperate governor asked if he could stop them. The hero shrugged. "I can try. Sounds like it might actually be fun." On the observation deck of the orbital tether, Saitama gazed at the approaching bioships filling the void, their organic forms pulsing with malevolent life. Inquisitor Hellbrand explained the threat. Boarding spores would launch by the thousands, while the largest vessels would begin consuming the planet itself. Their defensive systems could withstand sustained bombardment from Imperial battleships. Saitama nodded, watching with interest. "So they're tough. That's good." Before anyone could respond, he placed his hand against the armored viewport and pushed. The adamantium composite shattered. Explosive decompression sucked him into the void as emergency shields slammed into place. The Tempestus Scions scrambled to secure the room, watching in disbelief as Saitama floated in space, white cape billowing impossibly. Then he oriented toward the largest bioship and somehow propelled himself forward with immediate acceleration, as though inertia simply didn't apply to him. Aboard orbital defense stations, targeting cogitators tracked his impossible progress. Machine spirits humming in confusion. Tech priests muttered binary prayers as their instruments registered velocities that should have reduced any object to component atoms. Saitama streaked toward the Tyranid Hive ship like a yellow comet. Defensive spore mines burst in his path, each detonating upon contact with bioplasma and toxic spores that would dissolve adamantium. The explosions didn't even singe his cape. He raised his fist as the colossal organism came into view. Serious punch. His fist connected with the hull. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the hive ship ceased to exist as a coherent entity, transmuted from impossible biology to component atoms to pure energy. The blast caught 2 escort bioships, reducing them to rapidly expanding gas clouds. Millions watched in stunned silence as the largest vessel, which could have withstood an Imperial battle group for days, was destroyed with a single blow. But the hive mind was adaptive. The remaining ships spread out, launching countless boarding spores toward the vulnerable world. Saitama turned in the void, assessing the threat. He couldn't destroy them individually. It would be like stopping a sandstorm grain by grain. His expression changed, becoming truly serious for the first time. Consecutive normal punches. His arms blurred, existing in multiple places simultaneously, sending pressure waves through vacuum that intercepted and detonated thousands of spores in spectacular displays. Yet spores still slipped through, streaking toward hive cities below. On the surface, PDF forces took defensive positions as civilians huddled in shelters. Governor Hellbane prepared planetary self-destruct codes. In the stratagem, Inquisitor Hellbrant watched the first spores make planetfall, his face betraying no emotion as reports of Tyranid organisms emerging flooded the Vox networks. A massive energy signature approached at impossible speed. "It's him," Magos Theron announced. "The anomaly is returning." Saitama had destroyed the remaining hive ships, but thousands of spores had escaped. He landed in what had been a noble district of Hive Secundus, now transformed into an alien hellscape, coated in digestive pools and filled with scything hormagaunts. At the center rose a hive tyrant, directing the swarm through its psychic connection. The xenos sensed his arrival. Hundreds of organisms turned as one, and the hive tyrant shrieked, shattering remaining windows. The swarm surged forward. Saitama stood his ground. "You guys are supposed to be tough, right? Show me what you've got." He moved through the wave of hormagaunts casually, each tap of his fist reducing organisms to pulp. When a Carnifex charged, he sidestepped and flicked it with his finger. The massive creature exploded. The hive tyrant began to transform, biomass flowing as the hive mind implemented emergency adaptations. Its limbs elongated, carapace thickened, and a new organ formed pulsing with psychic energy. The metamorphosis complete, it charged with impossible speed, talons wreathed in crackling energy. For the first time, Saitama actually had to move to avoid being hit. One talon grazed his suit, tearing the fabric. He glanced down in surprise. "Huh, you actually damaged my suit. That's new." His expression changed from boredom to something approaching excitement. "Okay, now we're getting somewhere." When the tyrant charged again, Saitama met it head-on, his fist connecting with the psychic organ in its chest. The carapace held for a fraction of a second before shattering. Feedback traveled through the synaptic network, stunning every Tyranid on the planet. Serious, consecutive punches. His fists blurred, each blow precisely calculated, until nothing remained but dissolving organic matter. The death of the synaptic creature threw remaining Tyranids into disarray. Without guidance, they reverted to base instincts, attacking everything including each other. Saitama straightened, looking disappointed. "That was almost interesting. For a second there, I thought you might give me a real fight." From nearby shadows emerged a figure in warped power armor, bearing symbols of the Black Legion. Impressive display. "Mortal," the Chaos Marine's voice grated through his vox emitters. "But you face a true champion of chaos now." Lord Malister Vex introduced himself as Champion of Abaddon. Slayer of Worlds, he'd watched Saitama's battles from the Imperium, and the ruinous powers themselves had taken notice. Join chaos, and the galaxy would kneel before his might. Saitama scratched his head. "Yeah, I'm not really interested in that. I'm just a hero for fun." The champion's fury was palpable. He lunged forward with his power sword aimed at Saitama's heart. The blade connected and stopped dead. No penetration, no damage. Vex stared in disbelief. This weapon had tasted the blood of chapter masters and severed demon limb. When the Chaos Marine unleashed his full warp-gifted powers, dark energy coalescing into corruption tentacles while chanting words that could drive mortals insane, Saitama looked mildly annoyed. Serious headbutt. His bald head connected with the demonic helmet. Reality tore, and Lord Malister Vex simply ceased to exist, not killed or destroyed, but erased so completely that even the warp retained no memory of his passing. Saitama straightened. "One punch again. Well, One headbutt still counts. In the aftermath, remaining Tyranids were systematically eliminated. The 84th Cadian cleared hive after hive of xenos taint. Mechanicus vessels arrived to study the unprecedented devastation, though many advocated for examining Saitama himself more directly. In the governor's palace, a different council gathered. Inquisitor Hellbrant, joined by representatives from multiple ordos and a Grey Knight, brother, Captain Vortigern, whose order specialized in fighting demonic incursions. The situation has grown beyond my authority, Hellbrant admitted. This anomaly represents a threat category beyond anything in Imperial records. Vortigern agreed the ability to destroy warp entities with physical force defied all explanation. Even Grey Knights with sanctified weapons would struggle to achieve what Saitama accomplished casually. The doors swung open and Saitama entered, accompanied by Kalia. Sorry I'm late. There was a riot in the Underhive. I helped sort it out. The assembled Inquisitors rose, hands moving to weapons. Vortigern prepared his psychic gifts. Saitama raised his hands. Whoa, calm down. I just came to talk about going home. It's been fun and all, but I miss my apartment. Also, the monsters here all kind of look the same. It gets repetitive. The Inquisitors exchanged glances. Did he truly wish to return when he could rule this galaxy with his power? Saitama blinked. Rule? That sounds like a lot of paperwork. No thanks. Hellbrant began to laugh, genuine amusement that none present had ever heard from him. The greatest power our galaxy has witnessed, and all he wants is to go home to his apartment. After his composure returned, the Inquisitor agreed to petition the Mechanicus to investigate opening a portal to Saitama's reality. The process could take months, perhaps years. In exchange, Saitama would continue eliminating threats under Imperial guidance. But Hellbrant had no real intention of letting him leave. As he told his fellow Inquisitors after Saitama departed, the Imperium has never relinquished a weapon once acquired. Vortigern warned, those who seek to control power beyond their understanding often find themselves destroyed by it. 3 weeks after the Tyranid defeat, Saitama stood in a vast Mechanicus chamber where Archmagos Dominus Veneratus had constructed a dimensional breach apparatus. They'd isolated his home dimension's unique energy signature and calculated the coordinates. The machine would open a temporary breach allowing passage. As Saitama prepared to depart, Kalia approached, removing a medallion bearing the Imperial Aquila from around her neck. Take this to remember us. He accepted it with surprising gentleness. Cardinal Drovan rushed forward with acolytes, insisting the saint couldn't depart without blessing. As he began intoning prayers, Inquisitor Hellbrant sensed something wrong. His words carried an undertone that didn't match standard liturgy. Brother Captain Vortigern confirmed, warp interference, subtle but growing. The Cardinal's eyes suddenly glowed with internal fire. His skin split to reveal writhing warp energy barely contained. For the glory of Tzeentch, the saint shall not depart but ascend. The thing that had been Cardinal Drovan transformed fully, not a daemon host but a greater daemon in disguise, hiding through sorcerous means. Its acolytes melted into pink horrors as they cast eldritch energies into the Mechanicus device, corrupting the carefully calculated breach. Instead of opening a precise portal, it tore wildly at reality, creating a growing rift through which warp entities could be glimpsed. The daemon grew massive, feathered wings unfurling as it towered over the chamber. The Changer of Ways has foreseen your potential. You shall ascend to daemonhood. Your power wedded to the warp to remake this galaxy. Grey Knights leapt from the observation gallery, forming a cordon as they chanted banishment litanies. Blast doors closed as the facility prepared for emergency scuttling if the incursion couldn't be contained. Saitama stepped forward. I've had enough of this. I was actually starting to like this place. Sure, it's grim and everyone's always fighting, but people here try their best. Some of them are even pretty decent. He glanced at Kalia taking cover. But at the end of the day, it's just bullies picking on people who can't fight back. He raised his fist casually. I'm going to punch you now. Then I'm going to fix that portal and go home. Serious punch. The blow connected. Reality shuddered as force transferred not just into the daemon's material form, but its warp presence. The Greater Daemon of Tzeentch exploded not just its physical manifestation, but its warp essence. The punch traveled through dimensions, striking the very concept of the daemon's existence. In the crystal labyrinth deep within the warp, an echo rippled through impossible architecture, causing momentary consternation to Tzeentch himself. The corrupted breach pulsed and shrank, wild energy suddenly contained by Saitama's blow. Pink horrors screeched as they were drawn back into the collapsing rift. Within moments, the chamber was quiet, save for groans of injured tech priests. The Ork Waaaghs confirmed the machine remained functional, the daemon's interference neutralized, calculations intact. The window of opportunity would be brief but sufficient. Saitama returned to the central platform, looking around one final time at the Grey Knights with raised weapons, at Hellbrant watching from above, at Kalia emerging from hiding. Well, it's been interesting. The dimensional breach formed as intended, a perfect circular portal showing the familiar skyline of Z City. He turned to the assembled dignitaries. Thanks for trying to help. Sorry about all the trouble. Hellbrant stepped forward. The Imperium owes you a debt. Just doing my job. Or my hobby, I guess. He gave Kalia a small smile. Try to stay out of trouble. Then, with a casual step that belied its momentous nature, he crossed the threshold between dimensions. The portal collapsed with a sound like a sigh, leaving only empty air. In the silence, Hellbrant addressed his colleagues. The anomaly had returned to its reality, and the cults forming around him would be managed through adapted narratives. But the Ork Waaaghs revealed something crucial. The dimensional coordinates indicated Saitama's universe existed in parallel to theirs, separated by barriers of varying thickness. What happened once could happen again. The membrane between realities had been weakened. Hellbrant ordered monitoring protocols established. If any sign of another breach appeared, he wanted immediate notification. The Imperium had survived this visit, bending but not breaking. But ripples would continue spreading outward, changing things in subtle and profound ways. Perhaps someday the bald hero would return, the saint of the one punch, neither demon nor angel, but something else entirely. A force of nature, in human form. In his apartment in Z City, Saitama sat watching television with noodles, his expression as impassive as ever. On the wall hung the small medallion bearing the Imperial Aquila. Outside, sirens wailed with another monster attack. He sighed, set down his food, and donned his yellow suit. As he prepared to leap toward the disturbance, his gaze lingered on the medallion. For a moment, something like nostalgia crossed his features. At least the monsters here might give me a good fight, he muttered, though he knew the words weren't true. After facing daemons and cosmic entities, after shattering dimensional barriers with his fists, what challenge could his world's monsters present? Perhaps that was the true curse of his power, not that he defeated any foe with one punch, but that in doing so, he'd removed all meaning from victory. As he soared toward the monster attack, white cape billowing like the wings of the Aquila, he wondered if somewhere in that grim darkness, Inquisitor Hellbrant still watched for his return, and whether, if the dimensional barriers thinned again, he might step through once more, not because he was needed or sought challenges, but because in that universe of unending war, he'd found something unexpected, a place where his power had purpose.